Welcome back, everybody, to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Salim, and I got my co-host with me, Coach Ralph. Oh boy, Coach. Mama told me there'd be days like this.
Oh, yes, yeah. I've been listening to Liverpool fans for most of the day, and I guess it's the end of the world, Salim. So, things have come crashing down pretty quick.
Yeah, it was a Thursday's game versus Atalanta was that was probably the worst performance I've seen him put in quite a while, and I don't know if the scoreline necessarily reflects the game, because there was it seemed to me that Atalanta was getting every second ball, every deflected ball happened to go to them. Everything kind of went right for them, and everything went wrong for us.
Yeah, I think there's fair comment, but I think you've got to give Atalanta credit. I do recall the Champions League game from a few years back where when they came to Anfield, it was a very similar kind of performance. But they just, as you say, everything seemed to go for them. They had the edge on the night. I think there's no question about it. And from a Liverpool perspective, the whole thing was summed up by, if you think of the Sheffield United game, like they should have scored in the first minute, and Atalanta had a near identical chance in the first minute of their game,
right?
Which Kelleher did incredibly well. He spread himself and hit him in the face, but that's what a goalie's got to do in that situation. So I think as the last few days have shown, there's something off with the Reds right now, and consequently, we've had the results that we've had.
Yeah, the game with Atalanta also, there was a couple instances where it could have kind of shifted, especially being in Anfield, like Elliott's shot that hit the crossbar and the post and somehow did not go in. Darwin had a few chances, but the defense was just all over the place, and they were susceptible to every counterattack, it felt like.
Right. And what I'm hearing from a lot of fans, and I guess I would agree to a point, is Endo and McAllister in midfield just seem to have lost their edge.
Yeah.
Like they've had to play a lot. They've had to play a lot of games because of the injury situation and what have you. I think the team has leaned greatly upon them. And basically, they've done an incredible job. Endo also picked up a knock. I believe it was against Brighton.
Right.
And maybe that has contributed, but they just seem to have lost their edge. And then you've got players coming back in. Curtis Jones struggled against
Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace greatly.
Yeah.
I think we could all see that because he was on fantastic form prior to his injury.
Yeah, and we talked about this, I think, in last week's podcast or the week before, that, these guys are going to come back, but they have to come back slowly, and we can't just expect them to hit the ground running as soon as they come back. I mean, Jota, it was nice to see Jota back, and he missed a couple of chances at Atalanta and Crystal Palace, but we know what he's made of, and he'll come good. It was nice to see Trent back. It was nice to see Alisson back. I think, we lost 3-0 one time in the Champions League, and it was a magical night on the return leg. And the last time we played Atalanta in Atalanta, we won 5-0. So there's hope.
I think there's hope in theory. I think you've got to be realistic, though. The Barcelona game, which I believe you're referring to, was
Correct.
At Anfield.
That's true.
And off the top of my head, I can't ever recall. I mean, I can remember some great performances in Europe from the Reds where they played away and got a result. But I can never recall a situation like this where they have to claw back such a big deficit.
Yeah.
And basically right now the team is lacking the edge. and they're lacking energy. I think that's a major factor in kind of what's happened over the last week or so.
How do we resolve that? How do we just, do we start Cody Gakpo instead of Darwin? Do we have Elliott start? Like, how do we resolve that?
Well, Gakpo actually has looked quite good in the last two games.
I completely agree.
Everybody else has struggled. Yeah. Gakpo has shown up quite well, and I was kind of surprised against Palace that Jurgen left Elliott until so late in the substitution pattern, because consistently when he's come on, he's given a raise to the team, and I think if you're going to talk about energy, I think that those two guys definitely have to figure in the equation. As for the rest, it's tricky. It's tricky. I suppose most people would probably look at a Nunes, for example, and say, well, he's been missing a lot of chances. But yet he's still got energy. He still puts himself about.
Right.
Whereas I'm afraid to say, and I think others are picking up on it, Mo Salah just doesn't seem to be there right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's tough to see
tricky.
It's tough to see Mo Salah struggle like this, because we know what he's capable of, and it seems like that injury that he picked up in the African Cup of Nations is really kind of...
Well, it's derailed him.
Yeah, completely derailed him.
Yeah, and even though he scored a couple of goals over the period, I mean, it's tough to keep him in, and so really, in some ways, I think if you're looking for energy, you've got to play Gakpo, Diaz, and Nunes against Atalanta.
Mm-hmm.
Jota, I believe, had a great game against them. I can remember listening to it on the radio when they played in Italy. But
he had a hat trick.
I don't believe he was coming back from injury at the time. And so the manager has to weigh up all these different things. Is it better to use him and maybe Salah as impact-type subs and then start the other three? Decisions for Jurgen Klopp.
What about the midfield? Because Szoboszlai had the error at versus Atalanta that led to their third goal. I mean, he just rolled the ball back and just didn't roll it back far enough. But I thought he was excellent against Crystal Palace, and he is an engine. So you think that maybe him starting in midfield will give a little bit more energy as well?
Possibly. I think he'll start against Atalanta. Basically, it's what do you do with McAllister and Endo?
Yeah, I think Endo needs a rest, because he was pretty bad against Crystal Palace, and in possession is when he really struggled. It's like they were closing in on him very quickly, and he couldn't get the ball out of his feet. Endo's has been a great surprise for us long term, but the last, especially Crystal Palace, he was off, and I think Jurgen has this thing where he protects players from getting criticism and protecting them from themselves, and maybe Endo needs a rest, maybe a game or two, which McAllister in the 6th spot might not be too bad, as far as he doesn't, he kind of knows he stays in front of the back four and maybe doesn't just swashbuckle forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tricky, because I think one thing that the manager is going to look at is going to be, okay, all of a sudden they aren't in the best position for both the Europa League and the Premier League. Does he prioritize one over the other? Which one do they have a better opportunity in?
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably the league. It's probably the league, because even though it wasn't a great day and things are looking ominous 30 miles away, I think Liverpool has a better shot at winning the league than pulling 3 goals back in Italy against a very motivated Atalanta team. So yeah, it's not the easiest situation for the manager, and midfield is probably where, due to the injury programs that the team has had, probably where he's got to look for some relief for his team. And if you're looking at it, you've got Szoboszlai. I think that Szoboszlai will play. I think he could play Elliott.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, does he do something like maybe game share between Endo and McAllister? I mean, like, that might be an option. Bajcetic,
Yeah, he's
back,
Yep, he's
but
back.
he's not played any games.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Gravenberch was on the bench even at the weekend.
No, he was. He definitely was on the bench versus Atalanta, but the weekend, let's see. He was. Yeah, he was.
He was on the bench.
Yeah, he was.
So he may well give a run to Gravenberch, I think. But I think, yeah, it's not the easiest decision for the manager here, because he does have to prioritise. And does he burn out his team, knowing that in the week that's coming up they have 3 away games?
Right.
League.
Right.
It's easy.
And it's tough that Bradley kind of went down with an injury. It doesn't seem too serious, but I hope that doesn't force his hand with putting Trent in, and Trent gets hurt again.
All right. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, they aren't easy calls. But I think we'll all be looking on in interest to see what he does. I think he'll play Alisson. I think he will. Yeah. I think under normal situations he might have played Callagher, but I think that he's going to look for game time for Alisson. Just get him back in the mood, as it were, back in the swing of things. Mm-hmm. So I think Alisson will play, and yeah, interesting choices at the back.
The save he had on John P. Oh man, I can't say his name. What's his name? Mateta. Yeah, yeah. He was. I mean, Mateta was like a yard away.
Right.
I don't know how he didn't score that, and that was a great save. That just reminded me of, how incredible Alisson can be, and he's a big guy. So, the Crystal Palace game, you look at statistics, and it's just like mind-boggling. It's like, oh, we've seen this before. 21 shot attempts, 6 shots on goal, no goals. Just, versus Crystal Palace having 8 shot attempts, 5 shots on goal, and easily could have had 3 goals. Robertson saved one off the line.
Oh, right. I think that's one thing that you've got to look at from a balanced, try to take the red glasses off for a second.
Right.
And Crystal Palace had great opportunities to increase their lead. And I think that you can say, well, Liverpool made more than their fair share of opportunities, as they did in the 2 previous games.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I think that the final word has to be, okay, Liverpool didn't take their chances. They can only look at themselves for that. It's not bad luck.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that they just gave away too much. I mean, as I said, in the very first couple of minutes of that Atalanta game, it was a great save from Kelleher when he just had to spread himself, and it's, he was on the right side, or his face was on the right side of the ball. and so Liverpool are giving up chances, and obviously there's various thoughts on that. The back four's not being settled, running out of energy in the midfield, and these are all factors. But
is it our style of play though that causes this? Because we've seen this before, where they kind of edge to the finish line, and Manchester City plays a lot of games. So Arsenal's been playing a lot of games, and they're our competition. Thank God Aston Villa did us a favor, and really did a number on Arsenal. In the second half, they owned them, and their counterattacking was fantastic. So,
well, Liverpool have to go to Aston Villa, remember? So
yeah.
And I think you've got to note as well. I mean, like they've recently played Manchester City, and Manchester City beat Villa convincingly. So yeah, the Premier League's another thought, but the Atalanta game, I'd be surprised if he puts out the strongest team. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was surprised that he made so many changes for the first leg.
Yeah, because the first half was rough.
If you think back to the Sparta Prague game where Liverpool won convincingly over the Czech Republic, and then he turned out a strong team. I think it may well have been a stronger team than the team that he fielded against Atalanta. So why did he do that? And that probably has to do with the fact of players are feeling it in their legs. Has to be.
Do you think also there's not only that, but the extra pressure that the players want to send off Klopp, with another title, whether it's Europa League or Premiership, and maybe they're pressing?
Maybe. I mean, I've heard that, and I heard one Liverpool fan going on about that they shouldn't have announced it, and we really don't know why it was announced, whether it was a calculated thing to try to give the team a raise, or whether it was a situation whereby somebody was going to spill the beans and then there's lots of rumours go round,
right,
and that can have a negative effect on the team. So Jurgen Klopp had made his decision. He told the hierarchy at FSG, and that was back in November.
Right.
When was it he made the announcement? Was it like February or something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so you have to question, well, why did they do it? Why did they do it in February? My best guess is because they were frightened the word was going to get out. Otherwise, I think that they'd have held off on it. And then once it happened, is it going to help the team? Is it going to hinder the team? And judging by the results, you'd have to say it probably helped the team, if anything, because somehow they went through that run of awful injuries and they kept getting results. I mean, sometimes they were scraping home, but they were getting results. So it's difficult. It's difficult for me to kind of say, okay, do they feel any pressure because of the Jurgen Klopp situation? Because they might. But has it been detrimental overall? I'm not sure that that's the case. I think there's other things that we're seeing: running out of energy. Players are missing too many chances. I think that those are factors. That the defense isn't settled. Factor. And I mean, like, you've got Van Dijk is playing every game, but obviously he's got a revolving door of players around him.
Speaking of rumors, the Ruben Amorim rumors getting louder and louder. Nobody's has confirmed it at Liverpool, but the Anfield Wrap did a fantastic 30-minute synopsis on him with a Portuguese author who knows the Portuguese league very well, and he fully suspects that whether he goes to Liverpool or another club, that Ruben Amorim is going to be one of these new hotshot managers. And I mean, I'm trying not to be too dramatic about the results. It happens. Like, you can't play great every game, and we've stolen some games not playing well too. So it kind of evens out a little bit, but the next three games, and we win them, and all of a sudden we're looking at things a little bit different too. Obviously, we have to win one at a time. And as far as the Atalanta game, I think you're right. I think we maybe rotate players in for that. And okay, if we get a result, great. If not, so be it. But I would say the Premier League, like you said earlier, is definitely the priority, and hoping that our team kind of finds its legs again and just converts those damn chances. It's just, considering everything and the results, those chances, I mean, we put a couple in and we're fine. And I heard somebody say that, if we had against Crystal Palace, if we scored one, we probably would have scored three. We just couldn't break through the door.
Mm-hmm. Liverpool are not having problems with creating chances, which is a plus.
Right.
I think you have to say that that's a plus.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 5 strikers to choose from who are all in double figures for the year. So they know where the goal is. But unfortunately, it seems like they've all kind of hit the skids at the same time. And you've got Jota coming back, who, as we've noted before, is probably the most ruthless finisher out of the group, but he's trying to get up to match speed.
Yeah.
So I would kind of concur that in all 3 games, if the Elliott shot against Atalanta, had gone in, would that have made it a different game? Because it was 0-0 at the time, and probably would have. But I think the big cliche that I hear all the time when I hear the pundits talk is fine margins, and I guess that's a classic example of fine margins.
Right.
So that was the finest because it kind of slithered from the bar to the post and out.
Yeah, sports are a game of inches, they say sometimes, right?
Millimeters.
Right.
I mean, and they kind of work with the Robertson clear off the line because that's another example of it. But unfortunately, we couldn't get the job done at the other end of the field.
I mean, that whole passage of play, like Virgil slips, and it's like, oh my God, no way. And Mateta does a great job with the chip, and Robo just covering the ground was great. Robo's starting to look good, though.
Yeah, I would keep Robertson in because he's missed a lot this year. He's missed a lot. But again, I think the manager has to look and say, okay, he had a serious injury playing for Scotland. Then he picked up another knock, I believe. He's been managing his game time. He picked up another injury, and again, that was playing for Scotland. It wasn't serious, but he had to give him minutes rather than games.
Yeah, and Robertson's played a lot in the last 5 years. Like, this isn't surprising that he's, injured now. I mean, he's been in every game for a long time, and this style of play. So seeing him kind of pick up an injury, it's like, yeah, he's not a machine, but he's been so consistent and not being injured, and then he picks one up, and okay, like, I kind of understood that. He's just played so much, and the way he plays hard, he plays fast. Okay, but I thought he looked really good. And what about what'd you think about Luis Diaz's acrobatic shot I believe on was Robertson's cross that somehow hit Henderson in the hand? He had no idea what was happening and didn't go in. I mean, that was like, I think that literally mirrored how we were all feeling over the past couple days with these 2 games.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it seems that way when they don't go in, for sure. But I think, look, Diaz isn't a ruthless finisher. He scores goals, but he's not ruthless, and he is capable of plays like the one that you're mentioning against Palace. So I think you got to keep him in the team because you know that you're going to get 100% work rate. You know that. Same as Darwin Núñez, 100% work rate.
Yeah, and Darwin hit that volley from 6 yards and just happened to hit it right at Henderson. I mean, just like, my God.
Yeah, that's how it is right
Yeah.
now, and all teams go through those runs. But if you're looking for energy, you have to look at those two. You've got to look at Robertson,
Yeah.
and maybe that's one way that Klopp will look at it and say, right, the odds are against us on Thursday, but if we're going to get something out of it, how are we going to do it? Do we kind of tempt Atalanta forward, which isn't Liverpool's natural game, and then try to hit them on the break? They have the players to do it, but they don't tend to be a sitting-in team, do they?
Yeah.
So I guess you've got to look at timeshare a little bit between players. Does he, if Bradley's good to go, does he timeshare right back? Say with him, with Trent or with Gomez or whoever. Likewise with the other side, you can start off with Robertson, and if he feels that it's not going his way overall, and it's late in the second half and Liverpool are clearly on the way out, does he just throw on Tsimikas to give him some time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting dilemmas. I just look at it and say, wow, like coming from 3 goals down away from home. Liverpool have had some incredible European games, but I can never recall a game like that away from Anfield. And if they were to do it, that would be one of their greatest performances for sure.
I noticed something about Atalanta as a team, and I think I don't want to say Italians as a whole, but they have like some dark arts kind of style to them. Like when the players get in tight, there's some shirt tugging. There's like they're really crafty, and I just kept seeing. I'm like, man, they're holding, and the Liverpool players couldn't break away from them, but they did it so smartly, I guess. Did you notice that?
Well, I think that's the modern game, even in England to some degree, because if you look at corner kicks as the classic example, I mean, they're all over each other, the players, and that's Liverpool and the opposing team as well. And back in the good old days or the bad old days, depending how you look at it, I mean, people were coming into crunching tackles all over the place. One Liverpool legend, Tommy Smith, I mean, he would go into a game and it was always very much about the first tackle. And even if he didn't tackle them, he would let them know. He would let them know that they were going to be in a game and they'd have to hurdle him because he'd come careening across the field and you either jumped or you got hit. But that was the era then. That was the era. That was the time. That was how the game was. It's a lot more physical than it is now. And so I think that we've gone away from the crunching tackle to more kind of the dark arts, as you put it, the little shirt pull and the wrestling on the blind side of the referee. And then from corner kicks, I don't think the players make much of an attempt to hide what they do.
Yeah, the corner kicks are it's so crazy when, I mean, they're pushing each other too. If somebody gets too close to the goalie, they're shoving them out of the way. And
they've got their arms round.
Yeah,
they've got their arms round attacking players before the ball even comes in.
The Crystal Palace game. Who would you say was the man of the match in that one? Because I think for the Atalanta one, let's just skip over that because that was just disaster.
I think you probably have to give it to Robertson, actually, because he's been out for a while. I think he's a key player to the way that Liverpool plays, and I think he showed a lot of his better traits in a game when maybe a lot of his teammates didn't. Mm-hmm. So I would probably give it to him.
Yeah, I thought Alisson had a good game too.
Alisson is well, he's certainly one of the best keepers in the world. So as you say, he made a couple of really top saves, and that's why he's there, and he's capable of doing it.
So, Coach, with the Atalanta game, we kind of talked about potentially a rotation. What about for, I believe it's Fulham next after that? What are we thinking for Fulham?
I think he'll play what he considers to be his strongest team, and so I wouldn't be surprised if Trent comes in for that. I'll be surprised if he starts him on Thursday, but I think he will play against Fulham. So Alisson, Trent, Van Dijk,
Robertson,
Canate, who looked a bit shaky. I think he'll play him now. Robertson, I think as long as they're not injured, Endo and McAllister will be back. Likely Szoboszlai as well. And then it'll be interesting to see what he does up front. I would go for speed away from home, for sure. But what does he do with Salah? I think that's the key question we're all thinking of right now, isn't it? What does he do? Because he's clearly off pace. He has an ego. And I think even before this run and everything, I think there's a good chance he's going to be leaving at the end of the season, irrespective of what happens, whether they were to win any more cups this year. I think that's always been on the cards because the Saudis will come in, they'll offer a big fee for him. And so I can understand from a club perspective to say, okay, he's into his 30s now. You could probably get a couple more years out of him, but what can we do with the money?
Right. And especially with a new coach and, potentially new tactics.
Exactly. So I think Salah is very well coming into his closing straight at Anfield. There'll be rumours about other players, Van Dijk, of course, and all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if they stay on, though. Other
than Salah, is there anybody else you can kind of clearly see leaving the club? I mean, I think Kelleher would probably be another one because he deserves game time. He's a good keeper.
Yeah, Kelleher will be in demand because teams have been asking about him anyway for the last year. I think he's likely. I think Tsimikas is a possibility. So will they buy another left back? Apparently, like they're looking at the American player who I'm blanking on. He plays for Fulham. Robinson. That's it. Yeah. He was at Everton as a junior. So that seems to be a strong rumor.
He's very fast.
So yeah, I think he could be. I think Tsimikas is likely to leave. I think that Matip will go because his contract expires. So they may well look to bring in a centre half or a central defender. Rumour is that they want a left-sided central defender. Will they go for another holding midfielder, defensive midfielder? Possible.
I think so. Yeah.
Possible. I mean, Endo has done extremely well, and he'll be there next year. You've got Bajcetic, who's still a teenager, really good player potentially. Who else is there that could go? There's a rumor about Diaz. Diaz. So
Barcelona, I think that's the rumor I saw. But again, who knows with these rumors?
Yeah, it's always hard to judge. It's always hard to judge the paper mill, as it were. But that seems to be something that keeps on going a little bit. Diaz, And I know that they're looking at a few other forwards, reputedly. So, yeah, interesting times. I mean, you've kind of got a couple of pundits weighing in on Núñez and everything. And I feel sorry for Darwin Núñez because I think that he's a good forward. I think he's very good. He's just not a clinical finisher, but he's still going to score his share of goals. He's going to make goals for others. And as everybody likes to say, he's a handful and he causes chaos for the opposition. So personally, I would like to see him stay. But new guy coming in, he'll have his own ideas. I think if he's smart, he won't make too many changes to the mix. But we will have to wait and see because we don't know who the new guy is.
I agree with you with Darwin. He's still young. I mean, finishing, do you think that's a skill that can be developed even more? Because he's not a bad finisher. He's just not consistent finisher.
No. As we've said before with Darwin, he came in at the same time as Haaland. So he tends to get compared to Erling Haaland all the time. And I mean, who can you really compare to Erling Haaland that's in world football right now? Because Lewandowski is past his peak.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose Kane, but Kane's more of an all-round player than Haaland. I mean, Haaland's had a little bit of criticism recently about his all-round game. And my own opinion on him is that he's probably the best striker in the world. But if you're looking for him to be a team player in terms of a collective build-up, I don't think that's his game. He's just somebody that you stick in the box and a certain amount of chances will come his way and he'll get a high proportion of them.
I have a take on Haaland. I think I don't know if he's the best striker in the world. I know he's got a left foot and he's fast and he's not very good in the air. He doesn't score in big games. I'm just not sure that, the tally is high. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He scores, but like against Arsenal, against Liverpool, like he's not like a force to be reckoned with. Like he can be shut down by better teams.
Maybe, but you have to consider as well that just his very presence there can take away attention from other players, notably Phil Foden
He's
right
fantastic.
now. So just physically having such a big, imposing striker out on the field that I mean, like he can use both feet, and he may not be, somebody like, oh gosh, going back to a great Liverpool great in the air, John Toshak. He may not be a John Toshak in the air, but he's going to win a certain amount in the air because he's 6'4".
Right.
And it's that simple. And he does score goals with his head. But I wouldn't say that he's one of the greatest in the air, as you rightly point out. But I think just his presence there causes problems.
Yeah, you do have to worry about him getting behind because he is quick.
Mm-hmm.
As far as some young English internationals, Curtis Jones just coming back, and I thought he didn't play great, but I didn't think he had a bad game. He missed some finishes. That breakaway was tough, but also the pullback from, I think it was Szoboszlai or Robertson, where it looked like he whiffed on it, or he just wasn't sure if he was attacking it or not. But Curtis Jones, relatively speaking, is a talent, and I have faith in him.
Yeah, Curtis Jones is a good player. He has the pressure of being a local boy, which many have pointed out, and I would agree with that. Over the years that he's played, because he has played a lot now for Liverpool over the last few years, his his biggest weakness for me has been that he dwells on the ball sometimes, and he doesn't make decisions quickly enough. And he's improved in that area. I think that where it's harder on him right now is he picked up an injury. He's coming back. There's pressure. There's pressure because probably the manager does want to give a break to some of the other midfielders that played a lot in his absence. And he's not quite up to speed, as it were, right now. Mentally, physically, whatever, both. And maybe he feels the pressure more than most.
Coach, when you have a team that's struggling to put the ball in the net but are creating chances, is there a tactic that you do or that coaches kind of look to help the team kind of break through that kind of lack of finishing?
Well, I don't know if there's any magic wand for it. And I kind of laugh when I hear fans talking on the radio and their teams aren't scoring many goals and they say, well, they need to do more shooting practice, which always makes me laugh, that because technically I'm sure that these players, you stick them in a practice situation and you do a drill, as they like to call it over here, you know, like they'll probably hit the goal plenty of times. I think that you've got to try to talk to them psychologically. Obviously, put them in situations in practice where they have lots of opportunities to finish. But I think that you've just got to stay positive with them, encourage them, point out their strengths, hopefully get into their head in a positive way. Let them know that you've got faith in them, because look, coming back to Liverpool's situation, they've got 5 strikers up there who are all in double figures. And I listen to Radio Merseyside a lot, and so I hear a lot of what's going on the other side of Stanley Park. And I think the Blues over there would like one that can get anywhere near to 10 goals in the season. So you've got to look at things in perspective. They have players who can score. Liverpool's creating chances. So I think that the manager and his staff have just got to keep on them. Look, it's going to come. You're thereabouts. It's going to come. I think that's all you can tell them at that level.
Yeah, we talked about in a previous podcast about a possible explosion of goals coming. I think it's coming. I think there's going to be a game where it's going to be 6-7 goals. Murphy's Law, like it has, like a law of averages here has to happen. They're too good.
Well, I hope you're right.
You know, they're too good. They're creating really clear-cut chances. I mean, the one Jota hit against Crystal Palace, he was 8 yards out, and Klein just happened to be in the way, and 7 times out of 10 that ball ricochets off him and goes in, but it didn't. You know, so it just, these things I feel are, you know, it's better that we're creating chances and not scoring versus not creating chances, right, and not scoring. So the fact that these chances are being created and the goals aren't coming, and it's been a run of, I think I would say since the United game, the 2-2 draw, it's really been tough. So it's a run of 3 games here where they scored 2 goals against United and haven't scored in the last 2 games. I just can see something coming. Well,
I'm hearing all the stats on the radio that I think over those 3 games they had 60 to 70 shots, but only scored twice.
Insane. That's an insane stat.
It is, and whilst I hope you're right about maybe a game where they really put somebody away, I think the key thing is that they get the vital goal at the important time when it's needed. I think that's a key thing, and even though Liverpool have shown time and again that they can come back after going behind, I'm also hearing that this season they've been behind first in a game 21 times, which is a pretty mind-boggling stat in itself as well.
Is it?
So 21 times this season is the stat I heard today.
And
which is kind of wow.
Is it because we're being exposed defensively, tactically? Is there something that other teams are seeing, or is it just a lack of composure, lack of focus?
Well, if it's happening a lot, then there are reasons for it. There are reasons for it. So again, the instances that I brought up earlier against Sheffield United, the team at the bottom of the league, and then Atalanta, which is a decent team from Italy, but they are the top team from Italy. They both should have scored in the opening minutes. And we're not talking about difficult chances. We're talking about right in front of the goal. And both times Keller has saved. So that there have to be reasons for it. There have to be reasons. And I'm sure that the staff at Anfield will be working on why. I think that if you're looking at the bigger piece as to why do Liverpool go behind first in the game, I think part of it has to do with they usually come fast out of the traps. They play on the front foot. They take the game to the opponent, and other teams set up so that they can counter. And if you've got a lot of space, then you're going to... Obviously, Liverpool will concede chances. But they're going to concede chances, and sometimes the other team will take them. And so that does happen, and maybe it's going to happen again. But I think that if you look at the season that Liverpool won the league, maybe they were more adept at the back at covering it up, because you probably had Van Dijk at his absolute peak, and then Matip beside him. He was beside him. He was a player that had a great season as well.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just what they lack right now, because Konaté is very fast. He reminds me a little bit of Mamadou Sakho, who used to play for Liverpool. He's better than Sakho. I mean, but they were both French internationals. He doesn't look as clumsy as Sakho, but I don't think the strength of Konaté is distribution.
Yeah.
I think his strength is his speed and his physical strength. And as long as he does things simple and quickly, he's okay. And I'm not sure if teams are trying to push it or channel it so that Konaté gets the ball more than anybody else at the back.
Interesting.
So that could be a factor. So yeah, these are all things we have to see whether Konaté steps it up for the last few games. Will he play Kwanzaa on Thursday? Possibly.
I'm curious. That's a really good point about maybe they're funneling to the passes to go to Konaté, because we know Van Dijk can spray them all over the place. But I wonder if also the Trent missing now doesn't have that outlet for Konaté, where all of a sudden now the ball can be sprayed all over the place.
Possibly, because Bradley's a very good crosser of a ball, but I haven't really seen much evidence that he can kind of knock a ball in from deep. I'm sure he can, but getting to reproduce the quality of an Alexander-Arnold is not easy.
He's special, especially in that skill set. Yeah. Well, Coach, we have 3 away games. We got Atalanta, I guess, is that 4? 4, yeah.
4. Going back a few weeks, Salim, I talked about this run of away games that were coming up and where would Liverpool be at when they came into this period. And I think the thought at the time was, would they still be in contention? And they are still in contention. I think there's no doubt about it. I think the issue is can they win all their games given recent performances? because even before the past week, they were just about getting the job done in several games that they played in. And then, of course, we are hoping that other teams will drop by the wayside and lose some games or drop some points.
Is it possible that this funk will end from a standpoint of the created chances and I talked about an explosion coming, and you talked about, more importantly, the important goals when they're needed. Mm-hmm. When a team goes through these ebbs and flows throughout the season, was the Atalanta game, would you consider that like a rock bottom from that standpoint, or I don't think the Fulham game was, but or maybe it was United that one, and it just kind of went weird against Atalanta, or
yeah, I think the Atalanta game kind of caught everybody by surprise because it was at Anfield. It was a European night. Okay, they hadn't beaten Manchester United the weekend before, but overall they had been showing signs of their usual dominance. They just hadn't put the other team away. And to be fair to Atalanta, they came out and they caused Liverpool problems just by their sheer endeavour. Mm-hmm. And the persistent pressuring and so on and so forth. And I think we were all caught short by that one. Was it a rock bottom? I'm not sure about that. In some ways, I think the Crystal Palace is even more, because you would think that after Atalanta that they would bounce back and beat a team like Crystal Palace, especially at Anfield.
Yeah, and Klopp talked about, we need a reaction, and we'll absolutely have one. And I mean, even when the Crystal Palace goal went in, you could see him on the sideline. He just said, "Wow!" Like it's almost like he's stunned as well as we're kind of going through this period.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's the easiest time for him. He's talked about, and that's why he's leaving, is that it's hard to keep going back to the well and drawing on the energy. Mm-hmm. And he's a high energy guy, and he expects that from his team, and he tries to give that to his team. And all of a sudden, he's been through the season. He's really propelled the team into a situation that we weren't expecting, mm-hmm. Where they're chasing for trophies on four fronts. Yeah. He's had all the injuries. He's had all of the issues he's had to deal with, and yet somehow he's kept them in contention. And I think that that's the perspective that we as Liverpool fans, as we kind of take a step back, have to look at.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't think that we were expecting Liverpool to do what they've been doing this year. And if you were to say, okay, they're not only doing it, but he's had to make numerous changes. He's lost key players, but yet he's kept them in contention. And then all of a sudden, it's like they've hit the wall. Mm-hmm. The players who've been playing are showing signs of being jaded. And then players are coming back from injury, good players, key players, but yet they're not up to game speed yet. So you're trying to put everything together and keep that momentum going.
I think another lens we could look at this through is if we said at the beginning of the season we would have won the Carabao Cup with 6 games left, we'd be 2 points adrift from first place, and we'd be in the Europa League. Was this the quarterfinals?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think we'd all say, yeah.
Of course.
I'm in.
Yeah. It's overachievement in one sense, especially given the circumstances. But I think that the reality of fans, and especially the modern fan, is it's never enough. And and once they get into a situation where, Liverpool could get a quadruple this year, and they went pretty far along that path, it only intensifies the feeling. And I know that I said after the Carabao Cup, because I believe it was our very first podcast, that could well be the only trophy we win this year. Mm-hmm. And I think I tend to be a little more conservative than many of my Liverpudlian peers. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the reality, because the manager, Jurgen Klopp's just done an incredible job to get the team into that situation, and I think it's very easy to forget that.
Yeah. Any predictions for Thursday against Atalanta?
Liverpool could win, and I think there's no question about it. But can they pull back 3 goals?
We think 2-1.
Look, they could lose as well. They could lose as well. I mean, my heart wants to say that they can come back, but my head says no. Mm-hmm. So I can't lie about that one. But Fulham, I think should be an interesting game, because they are a good team, but they're very much up and down. And they gave Liverpool a good game at Anfield this year. They gave them a good game at Craven Cottage a year ago. So that should be interesting.
Yeah, and we'll get another look at Anthony Robinson, maybe a new left back for Liverpool as well in the future.
Yeah, that is the rumor. So I hope he's a good. Well, I know he's a good player, but I hope he doesn't play that well against us on the weekend. So we'll see.
All right. Well, Liverpool fans, thanks for joining us. Coach, thanks again for everything, all your insight. And we will catch you guys next time. Take care.
Let's end on a positive note and say it can only get better. Right?
That's right. And hey, we're 2 points adrift. We're right in the mix.
Yeah.